Alright, all you dreamers and streamers out there, we're back at it again with a brand new bedtime story. My name is McDerminator. This story is part 1 of the furious tale of Mad Jack. And without further delay, let's get right into it and get you on your merry way to Slumber Town. 210 years ago, last Thursday, a stranger sat in the center of a tavern, surrounded by people. Not one of them a friend. He had traveled for many months on a quest to recruit a mythological man who was rumored to dwell in the tranquil lands that he now found himself. The villagers, however, were proving to be unhelpful, to say the least. At the mere mention of the legendary man, known to many as Mad Jack, they began telling tales of his cruel obscurity. A tall, withered man rose to his feet slowly, his gangly frame shaking as he began to speak. I was out in the village, so I was, sweeping the gangway outside my father's shop. A couple of lasses wandered by. One of 'em, she had the most delightful eyes you e'er did see, and breasts that wouldn't fill a giant's hands. He held his arms out in front of him, simulating an inflated chest, and the men in the tavern erupted in laughter. But her friend, the other lass, he began, as his sunken, black eyes shot around the room. I seen twigs thicker than her, trees with bigger tits than she'd e'er have. This time the stranger found he was the only one laughing. The congregation had grown grim with the knowledge of how this tale ends. So I told her, I said, you need fattening up, lassie, for you're fit for any man's bed. And that was that. I'd never enjoy a meal again. You see, Mad Jack didn't like what I had to say to that there skinny girl, and every time he caught me eating after that, he'd punch me square in the throat, teach me a lesson for poking fun at skinny girls. The tavern remained silent as the malnourished man removed his scarf to reveal his swollen, black neck.
We used to have a grand fishing community here,
said a man hunched over a table with his arms folded, disdain in his voice.
We used to fish from daybreak to day's end, every day, all of us, even the children. But Mad Jack, he does not trust the water. He said to us he wanted to keep an eye on the fluid enemy.
He paused to shake his head in disgust.
Said, we don't want it to sneak up on us. So, by his word, we all had to cut peeping holes in the bottom of our boats, and anyone who didn't.
The ex-fisherman turned and directed the stranger's eyes towards a grim-looking fellow sat in the corner of the room. But the man in the corner didn't react.
What?
The stranger asked.
Mad Jack pulled out his goddamn eyes.
The stranger sat forward and adjusted his glasses as to get a better look at the blind man in the corner. He soon realized that he shouldn't have.
What the? Are those?
That's right. That lunatic rammed pan cones in the empty sockets.
The stranger sat back in his chair, speechless.
We rounded up a posse once,
began the man sat next to the stranger.
Tried to run him out of town, we did. Mad Jack killed and ate 14 of our strongest fighting men. Left us nothing to bury. He even came to the funeral and hugged one of the mothers. And he stole my dog.
Hey, Tom!
A voice shouted from across the room.
Tell stranger about the time you were in the lighthouse.
Oh yeah,
the barkeep said, removing his pipe from his mouth.
Well,
he began, inhaling as he spoke.
I was in the lighthouse one night, and...
He paused to exhale a truly amazing amount of smoke, which completely masked his immense beard for a moment.
Yeah, well, there was a particularly horrific storm on this night.
Worst in living history.
Right you are, Christoph.
Tom said, pointing his pipe in the direction of the man who shouted.
But that didn't stop Mad Jack. Oh no. He was out in them waters in a one-man canoe, peeping hole and all. He was actually sinking as he was battling across the bay. I swear to the Maker, I saw him get eaten by nature's watery fury that day, and he punched his way straight through her belly and gave himself his own life back.
He took a slow drag of his pipe.
And do you know why he was out in the water that night during the worst storm any man here ever did see? 'Cause he left his sandals on the shore across the ways there.
A small boy jumped up and stood tall on a table across the tavern.
My mummy told me Mad Jack takes little boys away who don't clean behind their ears and brush their teeth.
The stranger didn't notice the silence that followed the young child's statement.
I'm sure he does, little man.
He responded with a smirk, winking at the boy's parents.
Nah, the boy speaks the truth,
said the man sat next to the stranger.
He's really big on hygiene.
The stranger's eyes widened in disbelief. Perhaps he had made a mistake coming here.
Mad Jack done kicked my goose. Sleeps on a 10-foot bee's nest, so he does.
He's mad as a box of frogs. In fact, I once saw him eating a box of frogs.
Mad Jack spends his time sharpening things that ought not to be sharp.
That's enough!
An eccentric elderly man pronounced.
Now we all know Mad Jack is the answer to a question that not one of us asked. This man, this stranger, he says he wants to find Mad Jack.
He limped around the table the stranger sat upon, with the aid of a decaying ram's horn walking stick.
Well, I remember when Mad Jack first came here. We stayed out of his way, left him alone. We feared him, let him do as he pleased in the hope that one day he'd move on. That was 20 goddamn years ago. Now, stranger, you say you want to find Mad Jack. You gonna take him away with you?
Yes.
Well, then I say, okay. I'll show you the way to Mad Jack's shack, so long as he don't never come back.
The elderly man hobbled over to the window opposite the bar.
You see that there shack across the ways? All that scorched land round it? That be where you find Mad Jack.
That's literally across the road.
Well, then it looks like you've wasted your time here, stranger.
The elderly man said, as the tavern erupted with laughter once again.
And yet somehow, you've not wasted a penny,
said Tom the barkeep, chewing on his pipe. So the stranger crossed the road, heading for Mad Jack's shack. The villagers' stories had filled him with wonder, but he couldn't help but feel as though he was making a grave mistake. How could he ever hope to control such an unpredictable man, if he even was a man at all? But that was the least of his worries, for now he found himself outside the large oak door to the home of Mad Jack. He peered through the keyhole before he dared to knock. Deep in the darkness, something stirred, and suddenly he found his gaze was met. Oh my God. I wonder if the stranger is truly ready to meet Mad Jack. Well, I guess we'll find out next week when the furious tale of Mad Jack continues in part 2 of The Furious Tale of Mad Jack. Sweet dreams.